We are recording.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mendon Select Board meeting for July 1st. If you please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we are recording. There are 4 members present. Brian Morford will not be here tonight, either in person or remotely, so we don't need to do roll call votes. So first, is there anyone present or online that would like to make a statement or a petition? Hearing none, let's move on to community events and announcements.
We've got the Lions Circus, which we're talking about in a little bit on the 6th and 7th. Start to add, we've got the mock signing, declaration mock signing on August 2nd. We'll share more details on that too.
July 13th.
July 13th, so it's before our next meeting. So July 13th, a rain date of the 14th for the cardboard boat race at Mendon Town Beach.
And the Horribles Parade.
That's
this Friday.
This Friday.
At 6 p.m.
Any of you judges?
If you recall at the last meeting, all 5 of us were invited. So I am planning to be there Friday night.
So planning on it. I'm not sure. I responded here in the meeting. I didn't respond by email. So
Yeah, I didn't.
Be walking.
So okay. Oh, you might have to add.
Yeah.
I'm like 50-50. I have an appointment that ends at 6, so see how fast I can get here.
All right. Thank you. I don't see anybody else online talking about it. And we do have, we are going to take a vote a little bit about the Lions Club Circus. We'll talk more about that at that time. But the next issue is appointments, and we have a potential to reappoint Murphy, Hess, Toomey, and Lehane as town council.
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So we've got an engagement letter here. This is something I've asked Murphy Hesse for, just to define the scope of what town council means to us and what the rate that they charge for us. And then when they assign a non-attorney, what that means. So general legal services at $210 per hour and paralegal and clerk services at $130 per hour. And like all professional law firms, they bill in 1/6 minute or 1/10 of an hour increments. And then I review those bills each month. So we appoint, or we're asking to appoint Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane, the firm, as town council, with a recognition that the primary partner assigned to our account is Kate Connolly. In the recent years, it's been Karis North, as they transition their portfolios and whatnot. So Kate joined the firm about a year ago, has 20-odd years of municipal experience, previously represented Upton, is incredibly attentive and responsive, and well-versed in zoning issues. And then we still have the breadth of the firm at our disposal. So for land use and conservation, Karis is that person. For licensing, they've got David DeLuca, they've got Peter McNulty for real estate transactions. So we still have the breadth of the firm, but Kate Connolly will be the primary partner assigned to the account.
Does anybody have any questions? Then at this point, I would be looking for a motion to reappoint Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane, LLP, as town council for the town of Mendon and authorize the town administrator to sign all related documents.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a new appointment to the Finance Committee. Can you tell me if what went on? Obviously, did the Finance Committee meet with this gentleman, Tyler?
Yes, so the Finance Committee met with Tyler Abbott, maybe, I'm not sure. I joined the meeting to talk about transfers recently. He's fully recommended by the Finance Committee. There's an opening, so this is not the expiring stuff on June 30th. That is the 45 days. This is an opening that they've had for the last year, maybe. And yeah, he comes universally recommended by the Finance Committee.
I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Tyler Abate. Apologize if I butchered the pronunciation of his last name, to the vacant seat on the FinCom for a term to expire on June 30th, 2021.
So
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you, sir. All those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous.
To the 1-year appointments.
Sure. We're going to go back to 1-year appointments. You have another one?
Yeah, so there was a list in the packet upon advice of Ms. Brugos to comport with open meeting law as we were instructed previously. We wanted to make sure we listed the names, positions, and terms of all the 1-year appointments before being considered by the board. So this was posted to the town website. So we have a number of 1-year appointments here. I'm going to read through them. And then any ones that we want to discuss further, we can go ahead and discuss. So, and
Can I just ask, are these all clear to be appointed? Is there any pending issues with approvals or recommendations or?
Nope, the only one would be what we talked about with building inspector before about the hours per week. So I was going to skip that second one and come back to that at the end, because all the other ones are entirely non-controversial and most of them are non-compensated. So I'll come back to building inspector. ADA coordinator, this is our town planner, Dylan Lindholm, supported $15,000 a year in CPA money. So that reduces our general fund charge for Dylan to do affordable housing. That equates to about 0.2 of Dylan's salary, a little bit less. Custodian, soldiers and sailors graves, Pat Morris, is our veterans agent. Election wardens recommended by the town clerk, Catherine Rich and Leah Martin. Insurance Advisory Committee. So this is something we talked about with the retiree before. These other ones are kind of as designed, but still they need an appointment from the select board. According to, I don't even want to say bylaw, according to kind of tradition of the town. So Insurance Advisory Commission, one from each union. So police union, these are their presidents. Police union, Steve Cinco, Fire Department, Leonard Morgante, Town Hall union, Dan Byer, and Highway union, Peter Chauvin. And then the retiree, Claudia Caltato, who was joined the committee, joined the board a few weeks ago. Municipal Hearings Officer, Ellen Agro. Procurement Officer for Highway, Jonathan Dudley. Procurement Officer for the town, myself, Jeremy Stoll. Deputy Collector is Kelly Ryan. That's again a firm that we assign things to when they go to collections. Town Council we just did. Veterans Agent and Veterans Burial Agent, Pat Morris. Wiring Inspector, Jack Brenga. Wiring Inspector Assistant, Albert Jones. Town Accountant, Eric Kinscherf. And Auditor, Roselli Clark and Associates. These are, besides the Murphy Hesse one that we talked about before and the Insurance Advisory, which are new, there's no changes from previous years. Building Inspector. So this is what we've talked about before, that we want to maintain John Erickson as, the proposal is to maintain John Erickson as building commissioner and add additional per diem hours for building inspector. We have a proposal from the inspectional services coordinator on individuals to do that. There's no individual presented here to be building inspector. I wanted to, we talked about this a little bit before, but I wanted John Erickson to be reappointed and then be able to appoint an additional assistant building inspector to assist with that. But again, none of these are changes. These are all 1 years.
Do we want to deal with these before we go on to the boards and committees?
Yeah, we actually don't have the boards and committees tonight because the 45 days has not yet lapsed from when we posted them.
All right, let's deal with this and then we'll talk about that. All right, what I'd be looking for is a motion to approve all the appointments as read.
Okay.
Having been made and seconded, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. To move on to the boards and committee appointments, I just want a clarification again. So these are not These are all, as I see here, none of them vacancy. These are all reappointments.
These are all election workers.
Well, we got the CBA at the top of the list.
That's the only one that's on there as a one-year appointment, and that didn't make it to our list here. So
Where did this come from then? This is off of the E. Well, anyways,
Is the CBA alternate a 1 year every year?
it is a 1 year, but
I remember appointing him last year.
normally it's not. I think what may have happened was he may have
Finished.
been finishing up. I think all the ZBA appointments are 3-year appointments. So
so
let's table that anyway.
for sure. Yeah. So yeah, let's get, agreed.
And we know that, at least council told us in the past, not reappointing somebody still allows the incumbent to continue to serve until they're replaced.
Yes.
So just
100%.
because it's not reappointed, doesn't mean they can't continue to serve in that capacity until we actually do reappoint them or replace them.
Have to contact them. Interested.
So we've done that. So
So I just want to understand, based on the fact that they've all been contacted, have they all responded that they're interested in continuing to serve? Do we know?
We have not gotten everyone that I sent out letters to respond. I've got about 15 people out of all, I think it was probably about 25. But that's what I have at the moment. I've had a couple people who aren't looking for reappointment that are looking to join, but I haven't sent those to the committees yet until the 45 days is up. And then once that's up, I will send everything out again to all the committees to let them know these are the people who want to be reappointed and these are the people who are interested in the positions.
So before the 45 days expires, we will again reach out to the incumbents to say, hey, this wasn't an oversight, like proactively make a decision, yes or no.
I'm just trying to understand, because my understanding of this, and again, maybe it needs to be explained to me again, was boards and committees, but election workers are different category.
Yeah.
And I would certainly agree if you reached out to them and they said that they weren't interested, certainly I could see the 45 days to see people to step up.
So the policy of the board from the beginning of fiscal 26, which we carried to fiscal 27, was as terms expired, we would reach out to the incumbent and ask if they were interested in reappointment. And in the same breath, post that vacancy to the public. And then the person who was up for reappointment would then be evaluated by the committee against members of the public.
If there were no members of the public, they wouldn't be about.
But I don't think that applies to election workers. I
Correct,
think that's a separate category. It just happens to be what's up on the.
Right.
Yeah, we are, I'll stop sharing so we don't inflate the.
So with the election workers, we're not going to you don't want to just reappoint them. Because I would think that they all are under the authority of the town clerk.
All of the people who are here on the election workers page have affirmatively responded that they want to continue as an election worker, and the town clerk has recommended.
Want to reappoint them tonight, or appoint them or reappoint them tonight.
Yes. We do not have any other board and committee appointments.
And this has been posted.
Election workers, we're finished with those, yep.
Any objection to me just reading this list?
Please.
Then current election workers to be reappointed are, and all of these are for 1-year terms to begin today and continue until June 30th, 2027. They would be Carol Cook, Ruth O'Grady, Peg Tatro, Wayne Phipps, Ann Vandersloot, Barbara Goddard, Sue Edmondson, Nancy Fleury, Nancy Phipps, Allison Chu, Jeff Crozian, Cheryl Lemon, Kathy Alexander, Diane Howell, Sue Cook, Judy Warner, Carol Sari, and Lisa Michael. So I'd be looking for a motion to reappoint all of these folks for the 1-year appointment is read.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. So now we're ready to move back on to meeting minutes for approval. So we have 3 sets of minutes for May 20th, June 3rd, and June 4th. Did we receive anything back from any members of the board that there were any issues?
No, I did not.
Are we looking for a motion to approve those 3 sets of minutes?
To approve meeting minutes for May 20th, 2026, June 3rd, 2026, and June 4th.
Any discussion?
Point, although I was not here on the 20th, I've reviewed the minutes and
I'm really happy with the minutes since joining, so thank you.
yeah, they're looking good.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Item 6, we have 1 set of minutes to be circulated for June 17th. If everybody could take a look at it when you have an opportunity, that'd be appreciated. Let's move on to number 7 for the Lions Club Circus, which is going to go on as it has in previous years, this year on July 6th and July 7th, 2026. Everybody who's looked around has probably seen the posters prominently displayed in various, and I will, just for full disclosure, was voluntold to post it at a local Chinese food establishment. And, they're around everywhere, and there it is on the on our team's page right now.
Happy to see that the weather is expected to be a little bit cooler on Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, they are usually here when it's 100 degrees, so it'll be nice and cool for the kids under the tent.
The animals. All right, I guess I would be looking for a motion to approve the use of town-owned parcels located at 3 North Avenue, 6 Milford Street, and 20 Milford Street by the Mendon Lions Club for its circus fundraising event to be held on July 6th and 7th, 2026 at the Fino property located at the corner of Route 16 and North Avenue, subject to the applicant obtaining all required permits and approvals.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion?
So previously, or at least in the letter, there was a request to waive permit fees associated with this. I wasn't sure why. So I know we've done it before. So I wanted the board to make the proactive decision that if there are any permit fees, does the board want to waive them?
In fees that the Lions Club would pay?
Yes.
Or fees that the Zabrini Circus would pay?
I think that the discussion in the past was that any applicable fees that the board has the authority to waive for the Lions Club, which is a nonprofit that does a tremendous amount of charitable work within the town and the state, is normally waived. And I would amend the motion to waive the Lions Club fees that we can't. But usually there's some to do with food service that's really up to the Board of Health, and that's outside our purview to waive those fees.
And the motion accordingly to
So
waive those fees.
To waive the fees under the purview of the select board.
To the Lions Club. Need to pay.
I mean, I believe they also have to be compliant for the health, Board of Health under animal code as well. So like, that's all outside of our,
And it's outside of the Lions Club too, because
Right.
it's the owner of the,
the owner of the circus.
somebody want to second that? So we all second it. Okay. So just so we're clear, it's fees that this board has the authority to waive, that the Lions Club would be responsible to pay are being waived, but anything that the vendor is the applicant for, those fees are not waived by us. And under no certain, and we can't waive any fees that would be the purview of the board. Those understanding, motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Move on. State primary and general election items, we are required to vote There is a motion proposed to approve the in-person early voting hours for the September 1st, 2026 state primary and the November 3rd, 2026 state election as outlined by the town clerk and presented to the board. Do you have that to present to us?
Yep, so the hours and the number of days are prescribed by number of voters. So at least 25% of business hours, at least 1 day per weekend, at least 2 hours per day you're open, at least 4 total hours each weekend. So the town clerk presented, split on 2 pages here, but up top, so for state primary, Saturday, August 22nd, 9 to 1. Monday, August 24th through Thursday, August 27th, 10 to 2. And for the state election, Saturday, August 17th or October 17th, 9 to 1. Monday, October 19th through Thursday, October 22nd, 10 to 2. Saturday, October 24th, 9 to 1. Monday, October 26th through Thursday, October 29th, 10 to 2. So these happen here at Town Hall in the a room in the basement. We sign it up. We put signs up. I will say the early voting activity in the wake of no excuse mail-in voting has been light. So we tend to go towards the minimum statutory requirements, not as an access question, but as a practicality, just because folks don't take advantage in ways that they have prior to no excuse mail-in voting.
Anybody have any questions? So I'd be looking for an approval for the motion that I read about early voting.
I'll just read the whole motion.
Sure.
So it's clear in my head.
That's
I
great.
move to approve the in-person early voting hours for the September 1st, 2026 state primary and the November 3rd, 2026 state election as outlined by the town clerk and presented to the board.
Second that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Thank everybody involved for taking care of elections. It's probably the most important thing that we do. So thanks again. Now we'll talk about the actual primary election warrant.
Yeah, I'll share that as well. So I had a discussion with Kat earlier this week. We use the word warrant to mean a couple of different things.
What page is that?
This is in the packet, page 43. Yep. So we use warrant to mean annual town meeting, special town meeting. We use warrant to mean the bills we pay each week, the payroll we run each week, but we also mean it to say this is what is issued onto a primary ballot. So this is the state primary warrant. So for Senator in Congress, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Treasurer, Auditor, Representative in Congress, Counselor, Senator in General Court, Representative in General Court, District Attorney, and Register of Probate for the offices in the state primary. The first Tuesday of September. Governor's Counselor.
I just comment that it's incredibly important, particularly in our state. Sometimes the primary is more important than the actual election in November, and yet it's much less attended. I would encourage everybody to apply online with our town clerk or the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office to ask for a mail-in ballot. It's much more convenient, and to vote in the primary, so everybody gets a voice.
And the mail-in ballot can be dropped in the mail, or there's a town clerk drop box right downstairs, day or night. Or you can walk in during town hall hours and hand it to the town clerk.
Right. So I would be looking for a motion to approve the warrant.
Move to approve and sign the warrant for the September 1st, 2026 state primary election as presented.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. It's unanimous. And it seems to be a monthly thing now, which is a good thing, but we're going to talk about acceptance of donations.
Yeah, and we'll have even some more from June. So I posted about the Mendon Food Pantry and their wish list and their desire for cash donations, and they saw an uptick in June, which is nice. So we'll see some more. But these are the numbers from May. So we received anonymous donations of $100, some name donations. Also Donald and Gavin and Savannah Histon of totaling $125 for the Mendon Food Pantry. And then the Mendon Council on Aging gift account received 2 anonymous donations of $93 and $75, totaling $168. So I would look for accepting donations to the food pantry of $225 and to the COA gift account of $168.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
So I saw I think it's the Lions are doing Christmas in July,
Yes.
which is great. And if you haven't heard about it, you can go up and get a tag off the Christmas tree at Charles River Bank.
I believe it's also at Rockland,
at Rockland as well.
Rockland and Dean Bank.
Oh, great.
And all
banks.
of the local banks have all agreed to set, as a matter of fact, they're actually, the 3 of them are actually having a little competition as to who would collect the most and who had the biggest Christmas tree.
So my question was logistically, when they collect, would they be donating on behalf of the Lions Club? When would we accept that donation? Are we going to accept 100 donations on behalf of the individuals?
Lions Club giving it directly.
Yeah, it would be, I think the answer is that the Lions Club will tabulate it and report
So
it
then we'll just accept it as one big.
in aggregate of so much. And I'm sure that they will tell you that there were, just
X
as an
amount of
example,
donators,
162 donations totaling so much in pounds. Kind of like the way that the scouts do.
Okay.
When we talk about how many pounds.
More of a curiosity.
Yeah, but they're the conduit, and I think it's an unreasonable burden to put on them to say.
Probably more.
Since a lot of them won't, they
A lot
do
of
have
them
a deal with,
anonymous.
people take tags
Right.
and they turn it back in, but they don't always remember to bring the tag. So,
Thank you.
so we've already,
Motion and seconded.
so all those in favor?
Aye.
Good.
And then Jason Long talking.
Get me off track. So let's talk about custodial services.
So we had previously had a 1-year contract signed a number of years ago that just kept renewing, which is not, we're supposed to do stuff. So we also had custodial services at multiple buildings that individually didn't trigger any procurement threshold, but as you look at it organization-wide, we're procuring the same service over the same fiscal year and we hit procurement thresholds. So now we have facilities coordinator. I said, hey, for fiscal 27, put together a scope of service and a scope of work and put out a solicitation of quotes on that scope of work for custodial services, which facilities coordinator did. We received 5 responses, I believe, 6 responses, including from the incumbent provider who ended up being the selected vendor. So it was an amount under $50,000 a year, so we didn't do the sealed bids. Solicitation of quotes was sufficient. Just this morning, he brought in a contract that comported with the terms of the agreement, which was a 1-year contract with mutual agreement for extensions in years 2 and 3 at 3% increases each year, which is reasonable for a service contract. So procured it the way we should. We ended up with the same vendor with, and I said at this point, when I spoke with the incumbent vendor, I said, I think you're doing a good job and I think it's reasonable prices, but I actually don't know. Like maybe we should be paying half of what we're paying you. I have no way of knowing that without competitively.
No frame of reference.
Yep. So we went through it and I identified the vendor and I have the contract downstairs ready to go tomorrow.
So you'd be looking for a motion to authorize the town administrator to enter a custodial services contract consistent with the presented notice of award and to execute all related documents.
So this is the kind of contract I could sign underneath the new bylaw once approved without having to come to board.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank Thanks. And I'm going to move back to two things. I'm going to move back to issue 10 about the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan, which I'm assuming that Dylan prepared. And it's quite voluminous.
Yeah, that's the 200 and something pages of your packet. So I said when we first started this project, our self-evaluation transition plan was 12 pages long. And I was like, that has not been my experience with these sorts of projects. And then we got the plan back and it's 200 and something pages. So that's more of the heft that I was looking for in the analysis. So we've worked with two consultants, well, CMRPC and their sub-consultants since January, February, something like that, to do a self-evaluation transition plan of all town-owned properties. So we worked with your access advocates and James Mazik Consulting Services out of Worcester. We went through Town Hall, the Annex, the library, senior center, police station, fire headquarters, highway department, parks department building, historic museum, records room, cobbler shop, recycling center, school district administrative offices. So even though these are not town-owned buildings, they're public spaces in the town and were scoped in the original CMRPC grant request. So got a grant to pay for the evaluation, so we added them to our evaluation. Little Learner Center, which they're education, the Clough School, which is town-owned, that was important to Misco Hill Middle School, Founders Park, Grover Field, Mendontown Beach, Memorial Park, Veterans Park, Clough School Playgrounds, Misco Playgrounds, passive recreation conservation areas, and the Prophet Street Cemetery, and also sidewalk and curb access. It's an extensive evaluation. It provides us a roadmap as to what we need to do to make spaces more accessible. It is not a mandate to immediately do any of these things. It is unreasonable from the state's perspective. You know, we have a $300,000 improvement to do whatever, just because we know about it now, it doesn't mean we have to do it tomorrow. But we definitely want to start picking off. We have an obligation to pick off some of the easy to do, some of the low hanging fruits. So we'll orient our building budget towards some of those, and we'll likely have a larger package ADA projects to say, let's get a town meeting warrant article to say this in individuality, they're $1,000, but in totality, it's $100,000. So let's get $100,000 to go do accessibility improvements and delineate what those are. We don't have that yet. This is in draft form. We haven't done that secondary work. But the other two important parts of that are having this self-evaluation transition plan allows us to apply for construction grants through the Mass Office on Disability. So now that we've identified the need, Mass Office of Disability provides funding to execute on remedying these. And secondarily, you might have heard about the town's designation as a housing choice community, which allows us eligibility for a series of grants, among other things, from the state government. And in order to maintain our designation as a housing choice community, we need an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. And our previous one did not pass muster with the folks who get to determine muster. So this was entirely grant funded, was received by June 30th in concert with grant requirements. There are some inability to provide feedback and edits for the final form. This is the significantly intact draft, but there's still some refinements. So I don't know that you've all gone through the 200 and something pages. I haven't. Dylan, our ADA coordinator, who just reappointed, is in the process of going through it all.
So I have a question. I've not read through this. One question that's come up a couple of times is like the poor acoustics of some of the meeting spaces, and
that's definitely 100% listed. This room is specifically called out for that.
Okay, good. Wow.
Yeah.
And I know, well, like also just the noise.
I read all the things that were interesting to me. So.
Yeah. So like, I guess. Yeah, but like acoustics didn't come up when I searched for it, but maybe.
I don't think it's not, the word acoustic isn't what they use. It's something around hearing compliance or something like that.
Hearing ability, or
it calls out the fact that we have no way to amplify
assisted listening devices.
Assisted listening devices.
That's different.
I,
Well, that's one
It's
remedy.
related.
it's the solution to your, yeah.
That's one remedy.
The single mini splits will definitely help.
Yeah, it's my-
Like, yeah.
We're
When
not
I
wired
saw that, I'm like, whoa, and put on my glasses, but anyhow, that will help. But the stairs are so creaky, like anyhow, so I was curious, yeah, if there were gonna be actually any like sound attenuation, remedies.
All I saw was that.
Yeah, the thing that also is an irritation to me, but now is now accessibility issue is the multiple clicking on the website. And then the fact
Oh,
that we
yes.
don't provide an HTML browsable version of our packets. They said a 300 page, like a 300 page PDF isn't an accessible document. So, but they also did say that the screen readers worked really well on our website because it's designed for that. But as soon as you get down to agendas and
Right.
packets, then accessibility goes out the window. So,
Since you're speaking of that, I did have a chance to speak to Dylan earlier today, and they are planning to come forward with a plan that does
Great.
address website and things like that. So there's more
Yeah.
to come. This was just more of us presenting it to the board as kind of the
Well, you
initial
know,
reach out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there's clearly a lot here because it's 200 pages, so.
I will comment that at one point, the hearing issue here has been addressed before, and one of the possible remedies would be to put in a drop ceiling, which would stop the echo, but then what it does is destroy the aesthetics, historical
But even,
look of the room.
yeah, but even potentially addressing the sound in the stairwell itself could help.
Oh, in other words, if we just close the door.
well, like when 200 people, even if you took the stairs out, right, not 200 people, what did they say this room holds 110 people? So when 25 people or 50 people leave, even without the stairs, just them talking creates an echo.
And we've had that happen. People leave the meeting and then.
And then
they
they're
come
downstairs
downstairs
and we can
it's
hear
like
them,
an
right? Like,
amphitheater
yeah.
effect.
So I think some of this stuff is really good, low hanging fruit, and it pushes us to take action on something.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is fantastic, and I do look forward to skimming the 200
The
pages.
format is very hard to, like, I had a hard time sort of digesting the way it's put together, so, but I figured it out.
I don't know if there's certainly, I don't know if there's an easier way to do it, but I would just comment while we're talking about if just a specific, that's, I really for years is, that if you want to cross the road, for instance, to the post office from here, the only safe route, I think, is to take a right out of the building, go up the sidewalk in front of the old library, and I think there's a crosswalk up
There's a
there.
crosswalk
And then you
there.
have to walk
Walk
and
that
then
today.
cross again and do it. What would be wonderful if there was grant money or somehow available, that there would be a crosswalk as you exit the town hall to go straight across the street and have a little bit of sidewalk added that goes from directly across the street from town hall. Understand it goes across the sidewalk, across the parking lot, but then so that people could safely cross from here to get over and up into the post office in the most direct route. I think it's great that they put the flashing lights at the other end of the block. But it would have been better if they would have put it at this end of
A lot of people get their permits or whatever and
Correct.
get their notary done, and then they go straight over to the post office.
Your town administrator tries to go get a tea across the street.
Doesn't want to get hit by a car.
Never have space in the lot for those meetings. This is great. I'm
This-
really happy that the town has done this and that clearly a lot of work has gone into this document.
It's so thorough. And there's things that we could take action on right away, especially the website, non-monetary stuff.
Yeah.
And so I want to make a special call out, but department heads were really accommodating in their time and access, things like that, to make sure our consultants, that their time was well spent. So folks took this seriously, and I think it was evident.
I just want to, and to go back to number one, because I missed this, I actually have a text from somebody about statements and petitions. And she was an individual that had her tires popped during the, for those you aware, a couple of weeks ago, Hartford Ave from the intersection of Route 140 down to the Bellingham line was, the pavement was milled out one day overnight or early in the morning, and then it was replaced the next day. Well, there were, my understanding is there were 7 different complaints of people who actually hit on manhole covers that were not, they weren't protected.
Spray painted?
They were not spray painted. They were not, there was no kind of, normally I've seen that they would take a tire and cut it through the tread.
Or a plastic sleeve. Or
Some kind of a, almost like a ring around the manhole. And there were multiple people that had tire failures. And it was reported, and the town administrator is dealing with, I have somebody who was just saying that they had sent an email and had not received a response yet.
I had an email somewhat late last night about this, but yeah, I've received 3 instances of folks who have reached out to me. I've reached out to our insurance company and said, what's our liability here? So give me the contract documents. I reached out to Highway and said, what is our standard of care in our contract documents with our contractor, which he's transmitted to me, and I sent over to our insurance agency, and they're reviewing it as well to make sure that was sufficient. So then it becomes if the standard of care was insufficient, then standard of care was sufficient, but they didn't meet it, then it's on them. Standard of care that we demanded was not sufficient, then it's perhaps on the town. But if standard of care was sufficient and they met it, then perhaps the town has no liability.
I would suggest that moving forward, when we do this same type of work that's going to be done on Hartford Ave later this year, that we make sure that the contractor understands that they have to properly flag any hazards to prevent this from happening again.
Yeah, I think right now it's discussion is definition of the word proper.
And I would argue and I have some experience in this, that proper is that it would prevent somebody or warn somebody and prevent them from actually having a failure.
I think they were doing it at night to prevent traffic delays.
Yeah.
Well, the issue was that they had finished up about 4 a.m. and they came back the next night at 8 o'clock. So there was basically a 16-hour period of time.
Dark.
Well, I'm sure that, but it was right.
So it's, and so there were uneven aspects. There were structures that were
Raised structure.
Well, the way it was described to me was there were cones, but they were such that they funneled people right onto the obstruction. But that doesn't mean that the cones remained in the place they were in when they were first placed. But so it wasn't that there was nothing done. It was just that they weren't adequate to prevent these people that did report it. And I know the local tire store on 140 reported to me that there were 7 people that had come in so far. Yeah, interesting. So I just didn't want to. So we've done 10. We've moved to custodial services. We took the motion to present. So let's move on to town administrator's report.
All right. So first thing, I want to talk about special town meeting and about date selection for that. There's kind of no need to wait until we're closer. So our accountant has said as we close out the year, they will be ready to submit to DOR by the end of September for free cash certification. At that point in the year, it's usually a 1 to 2 week turnaround. They've been very quick. They're good about having their stuff in order, and we're a pretty uncomplicated group. We don't have a lot of off-balance sheet stuff or non-general fund stuff that needs to be accounted for, unlike some of our neighbors. So we would look to be as early as possible to accommodate the assessors and their tax rate setting. And then that also allows us to do our tax rate recapitulation process and the treasurer to get tax bills out, and just earlier is the better for dealing with slippage in schedules. That being said, so I spoke with the town clerk, with Dan Byer, who does the tech for it, with the treasurer and with the assessor. The last week of October seems to fit most people's schedules, not the Wednesday, so Monday, Tuesday, Thursday of the last week of October. So check your schedules on that. I'm going to check with the school department. I haven't checked with them today because I checked with those folks in the afternoon and have yet to talk with them. But let me know if the last week in October works for a lot of you.
Consider the gym again?
While the gym worked well, it's a lot bigger of a lift operationally, and we can get some risers, but the one level part of it was difficult for some aspects. So I am aiming for the auditorium. That's directed otherwise.
And while we're thinking about it, just thinking about the Monday, you said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday of that last week in October. Is there any one of those particular days that all of you would prefer? I'm thinking that as well. I'm thinking because Monday is the first day of the week, I'm thinking Tuesday is probably the favorable day.
Halloween Saturday, so no trick or treating.
We'd have to require everybody to come in costume.
Just the moderator.
Moderator, yeah, he would be careful what you ask.
Yeah, all those days are fine.
That was part of it too. I feel like most people's schedules are open in October right now, so I wanted to get this as the anchoring thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was great that we talked about it, be proactive about it. Yeah, it's wonderful.
I know one other question that's come up in scheduling this has been when free cash gets certified. So
yeah, they're ready to submit by the end of September. So the middle of October, they would anticipate it.
Margin.
Yeah. I think last year it was like 4 or 5 days. They were really quick turn.
And then the other issue was the assessors, right? We talked about that.
They just want it as early as possible. And so the first week of November is also doable, but with state election that week, the town clerk is quite
Right.
busy. So
Yes.
we want to move it in advance.
She wants to do it before.
Yeah. I asked that. I was like,
Well, that's great that you-
would the Thursday after be better, or would the week before be better? And she said, certainly the week before. A couple of days after the state election are very busy. Again, no action items on this, or it would have been its own agenda item. But as we think about free cash, I met with capital planning last night, and they kind of want, so we've got nearly $700,000 we're rolling over from this year's certification into next year's certification. We'll probably have, I've got an update on it here, but we'll probably have another 700,000 or 800,000 in surplus so my marker is about $1.5 million in free cash that we'll have in the fall. As I work with accounting as we close out the year, I'll refine that a little bit, but that's kind of the magnitude I'm thinking of right now.
is there any total, like from what's there now? Plus
Yep.
Yes.
So about
Not
$1 million. I could be.
The aggregate, right?
Yeah.
I could be surprised.
I just wanted to make sure that.
So we've got the last quarter of state revenue and the last month of local revenue yet to post because we're just finishing up June. So we'll know more in the next couple of weeks. But that's my anchor, about $1.5 million. So capital planning wants to know what number of that they should be thinking about. So they're prioritizing our capital plan, being magnitude agnostic, saying here's the priority, and then however far we get on that priority, great. But they want to know of that $1.5 million, what's available for capital in the fall. And that would be the total number minus all sorts of things. One, I think I'll put together proposals, but just how you're thinking, a recontribution to stabilization for what was used to balance the budget in the spring.
So the plan that we discussed already.
And we said, the plan that was presented, it was kind of the most conservative, where we didn't make any recontributions in the first year, but said in the bottom, free cash is available that's a lever available to lessen the out year impact. So a recontribution to that. A compensated absences fund. So we had retirements recently where we had to go and ask for $30,000 specifically just for 2 people in their buyouts. And that was okay because they were retirements. But if you have somebody who just leaves mid-year, doesn't announce their retirement ahead of time, and we have a huge, I want to have a fund available for compensated absences, which means vacation time, or in very limited instance, sick time payout. Some of that sick time payout by contract. So planning for that on a multi-year basis, so we don't get hit with a bunch right at once. We can smooth it out over years. And then we've been doing supplemental road repair for 3 years at $250,000 a year. This will be the second year that we receive a supplemental Chapter 90 appropriation, somewhat similar to the amount that we've contributed to roads. So it would be my proposal to not do the supplemental road funding this year and focus more on the stabilization recontribution. And part of that is it's just immediate priority. But the second part is we're doing Hartford Avenue East, which is a big project, and then smaller projects on Inman Hill and Morrison, which will be less disruptive to general traffic flow because they're less arterial. But we've got the Route 16 project that's going to be going on for a while, and the Providence Road project, which is going to be disruptive. So while road repair is important, I think if we try to layer on additional road repair stuff right now, it would become too disruptive to infrastructure and the general commuter. And we can kind of focus that money a little bit better in the short term.
And what you're saying is, from when we originally discussed this plan of plowing this extra money in, the state wasn't kicking anything. What's happened is it kind of caught up to where we are, and they're doing what we and to be clear, anybody who's watched the finances for years, we really didn't have the money to do this, which is why we never did. But then we found a way to do it, and now the state has come in and picked up where they, in my opinion, they should have been all along. So I think it's a great idea to let them cover, what we expected them to cover.
Yeah, I've said a couple times, we never want to hold our breath for the state to come through, and like the state did come through on this. So I think we should take advantage of that and kind of reposition.
Topping off like FinCom reserves and the building fund we cut back on and stuff like that, like things that we cut back for schools.
Yes.
So
the budget.
And while we're talking, just to pile on, our public safety, particularly law enforcement, has been patient. They lost some. They never really completely backfilled to the level that.
They also have a lot of vehicles on their capital plan, I saw, that they need.
So there are needs just as great as the roads. And again, it's all the Chapter 90 money plus this extra money certainly allows us to stick to the plan that we created.
So in terms of coming back and replenishing those, I look towards new growth that is above our expectations. So I believe we put $175,000 of new growth in as our estimate in the budget. And right now we're looking at the $230,000, $240,000, $100,000. So that's a reasonable amount of conservatism. The conference committee budget is going to help us out in the couple of tens of thousands of dollars from the state revenue. So at that point I would look, and my immediate would be, what did this board say no to throughout the budget process and our drop down menu sort of thing? Like, do we want to reconsider those? I had one miss from the Board of Health that we need to get back in there. There's the animal inspector position was in their proposal and wasn't in my salary sheet. So there's a few $1,000s that didn't make it into the Board of Health budget that absolutely should be there. So that's my number one priority. That's a thing we need to do. We would certainly be able to do that even absent any of this stuff. But so that's where I would first look, and then towards the building maintenance, the FinCom reserves, that sort of stuff. Spacers that we talked about before. But that'll be a fall conversation once we should have new growth certified sometime in August. So we'll have enough time in advance of special town meetings to come up with a supplementary budget approach. All right, so some quicker, lighter items. There's going to be a photographer here on the 15th. So we're bringing in a photographer to do headshots for department heads. We're going to use it. We're going to put it on the website. We're going to give it to folks to use on their LinkedIn when they talk to media. Here's this, whatever. Kind of humanize departments a little bit in our approach in our general public. In the same event, when I worked in the city of Attleboro, we had pictures of the legislative council that adorned the walls of City Hall going back to the early 20th century. So the photographer is also going to be here at 6 o'clock on the 15th to take your class photo. I don't know if I can say it, but this entity of this, or this iteration of the select board will find a spot outside that is indicative of that. And we'll put a photo over there, whatever. And my goal would be to continue to do this and put it on the select board page and say, these are your elected representatives. So we'll have a photographer here at 6 o'clock before our next meeting to take your
6 o'clock before the next.
Hopefully. So this is I'll reach out to Brian to make sure. So this was my way of saying, is everybody going to be here on the 15th? And if not, we can reschedule.
Definitely have to wear flannel.
Yeah, Brendan asked me if it's going to be hot. I said, don't wear flannel tonight. So I'll send a more formal email about that, but I wanted to let everyone know. We just finished phase 4 of the water project. So I met with the team a couple hours on Monday. Talked about the next phase, which is the federal earmark we received. So just, again, to be clear to everyone, this study has received only federal and state money. There's been no local dollars spent on these studies. So we're moving into phase 5, which is really ironing out the financial model and the phasing of main installation. It's in $2030, the project would cost about $40 million. So, and then, the financial model about what rates would be needed to sustain it. And well, so it's very much in its initial phase because the financial modeling was just kind of bare bones at this point. We'll get more into it in the next phase, but it is a expensive project that we are figuring out how we possibly do without ever burdening taxpayers who are not ratepayers. So if you're not on the water system, you don't pay for the water system. Same with trash. It's the same idea. So more to come on that, but again, it's federal and state money that's paid for all of this.
Don't we become ratepayers too at that point?
The town.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea would be to bring it down Providence and then get up to Hartford Ave and get to Cape Road. So yeah, there would be town buildings that would become ratepayers for sure. Not enough to kind of tip the scale.
There's an interesting consideration that, we've actually had town water on Route 140 Cape Road and Bay Street since the late 1940s. And because we don't have a public sewer system, what's happened is the water has been piped in from outside our community, inside a community, and has stayed here, which has essentially, I don't know if you want to call it artificially, raised the water table. Yeah, but just to, because there've been some issues about, well, we just save our water and preserve our water.
I was just thinking it'd be nice to have a fire hydrant on Morris Drive.
100%. Well, when in the 1990s, when my parents' house caught on fire, there is a hydrant there, and that is what was used to put it out. So
it's one of the considerations that you need more pressure in the system for fire flows than you need in general. So in order to maintain pressure in this fire flow, we would need this, 500,000 gallon tank at the treatment center. And the tank and installation of the tank is something like $2.5 million. So what they're exploring is other community tie-ins that would be able to be used to meet fire flow demands, but not general demands, and what those service contracts would cost vis-a-vis putting in our own $2.5 million tank. So those are the type of things that get considered in the second iteration of the.
People aren't aware of is that there's a restaurant at the Mendon Bellingham line, and there is a farm in Mendon up on Bate Street on the south side of Bellingham Street that are tied into Bellingham water because they were, at the time, Bellingham accepted them. But Mendon had discussed it with Bellingham many years ago about switching the main from Hopedale to Bellingham. At the time, it didn't work out, and now they've had a boom. My understanding is that they've deferred that we just kind of keep the status quo the way it is right now. So it really is, to me, all of this study for the water has been really towards, quantifying and preserving the watershed.
So lots more to come on that on its viability yet. So the board recommended, town meeting approved, an assistant town administrator. We had 22 applicants. I did 3 interviews with the town clerk. We've identified a candidate, and I'm reaching out to all the candidates. So I'll have a recommendation on the 15th for appointment for the board. But before I say anything publicly, I want to be able to reach out to all the candidates. But I think it was a great process. Thank the town clerk for her contributions. She chaired the screening committee for the town administrator last time around, so that was a good voice to have.
Is there a different procedure for internal versus external candidates?
The interview ended up feeling different just because of kind of known quantity aspects of stuff, but it was the same. There was no internal posting, and then we didn't go. We posted it internally, externally at the same time, and evaluated candidates against each other. We got tabletop chargers for up here, so we'll install those soon, so we don't have to reach down for all that stuff.
So we don't have to go around anymore and plug in.
Yeah, so there'll be one there and a couple on here.
Oh.
Like the
They haven't
outlets.
been installed.
The outlets, yeah. No, Dan Byer told me at like 3:30 today. He said, "Oh, I'm going to install those soon." So
Okay.
Said I met with capital planning last night, so we've got a schedule to move forward throughout the summer and have prioritization in advance of special town meetings. So we've got that fleshed out. They went and identified what department heads they wanted to talk to and what projects they wanted to drill down on a little bit more. You saw my memo. I highlighted my priorities on there, and then they largely keyed off of that. And there were some things that I missed that we'll talk about a little bit more. There's a company called Beacon Bid, which I think, Jason, you talked to them at MMA. It's a procurement group that has essentially a plugin to your website or a code you put on your website that is a much nicer bid interface than the Civic Plus interface. And then by using their interface, free tool, you get a lot of their back-end research stuff. You get to look up, RFPs from all sorts of communities. And
So
stuff.
that's the MIT.
I think they're a Texas
off.
group. I think they're like a
Didn't we talk
Texas.
to them about the electric vehicles, not the.
No, there was a couple. There was one place that was doesn't matter. It was an academic research thing and had turned into a product. That might have been the AI focused bid.
So they've got like of course, everybody who's at MMA has an AI focused whatever, but they've got all these back end, whatever you can pay for XYZ features. But I've run through a couple of communities that use them, and it's a way better interface for both bidders and us and bid management than what Civic Plus has. So I have it on here. We'll use it for our next one. It's hidden right now. You can't see it, but for whatever we do, 4 or 5 procurements like this a year. So whatever our next one is, we'll run it through that. If we like it, we'll keep it up. If not, we'll take it down. There's no commitment. But just want to let you know. Yeah, exactly. But
If you pay for their services, then you can auto generate content based on other similar bids of other towns, right? Stuff like that.
but what I do is I go out to my listserv and said, who has an RFP for XYZ, and somebody's got it already. So, and then I send it, then I look at the term, then I look at the legal spec part of it, lay ours over that our council has approved. And then I just take their particulars on their scope. And so it's, I guess it's a little labor intensive but
So it's just like an AI.
for 45 minutes of my time where I have the assurance of it, I'm happy to do so. But, talk to somebody at a conference, got a cool tool, and now I think we'll be able to, have a better product before because of it. Really close on town hall bargaining. We've got the whole MOU ready to go. We'll get it over to them. So my plan is that on the 15th, we'll have an executive session to approve the town hall union MOA for the fiscal 27, 8, and 9 contract. So there'll be 2 pay periods where they are retro, but in the grand scheme of things, pretty good. A vacancy in the building administrator in the building department admin position. So we're looking to combine that with another part-time position that we have to create one position, full-time position, with union buy-in, side letter, the whole deal. So we're kind of crossing T's, dotting I's on that, but I think it's a really good solution because we didn't view that position as a full-time need.
Will it be a partial floating admin? Or it's gonna be full-time?
It will be full-time split between building and town clerk. With the idea that when the incumbent leaves, the town has a unilateral ability to resplit those positions out if we want to, because we don't want the town clerk saddled with losing a good person or having to stick around with a bad person because of the second part of the job. So the identified incumbent, because we posted this internally, would be anticipated to be great on both, but we don't want to tie future hands. So we want to give us that opportunity to resplit it out if we want to. Union's on board with it. So air quality sensors are here, so we just gotta install them. But we got those.
Did we pick the buildings?
Yeah, Jack told me. Yeah, Jack told me in person. I don't have it already, but yes, we did.
I just wanted.
I said I identified and talked about before a community calendar. It's called Civic Lift. So I got the first draft of the calendar. Had some notes back, stuff they missed, stuff that some bugs on it. So I got notes back this afternoon about it. So it should be live soon for us. It looks cool. We're just trying to figure out how to not, infringe on intellectual property when we scrape somebody's site. And then the last thing I have is a fiscal 26 update. So as we finish out, I said about $1.5 million free cash, but kind of what drove that. Small surpluses in building maintenance, fire overtime, tree warden contracted services. And then MURSD, we had that $50,000 spacer that we put in. So obviously that's not going to get spent. That just flows right through to free cash. And then Norfolk Aggie and health insurance, we had some large surpluses there that I talked about last meeting when we did the transfers. So over $200,000 in surpluses between combination of the two. And revenue, we're still trying to figure out. Cannabis, we've got we're almost at what we budgeted, and we still have one more quarter to post, so that's positive. Meals, same thing, one more quarter to post, but we've already beat the yearly budget by $8,000 through 3 quarters. Investment earnings were 11/12 posted, and interest and investment income, $274,000 worth of revenue on a $50,000 budget. So in 27, we upped that, I think, to $100,000 or $150,000 in the right sizing that I've been talking about. But that's where a lot of our revenue surplus will come from here. Police detail, we're getting 10 to 12 details a day on Route 16. We charge a 10% administrative fee, which comes to the general fund on all details. So we budgeted $14,000 and we've taken in $31,000, which this is more details than we've done in ages. And we can expect that for the next 2 years. At the end, we won't have as much, but we'll have a lot of police details there. And then a large surplus in the ambulance line, but that just means we then have more consumables in the fire department because of it. it's generally a positive, but it's not a unmitigated positive. But building permits are going to be close to budget, but they might lag a little bit. And that's something that we've exceeded budget in the past 5-6 years in the look back. So we're seeing that really start to slow down, which is going to impact our new growth, right? So last year we had almost $100,000 in supplemental new growth in the fall to be able to appropriate. We're going to lag that this year. And then that kind of truncates what our expectations going forward, which was considered in the stabilization plan that I presented to you all in town meeting. We thought we were going to be, because of stuff like this. It's tough to say where economy and home construction markets are going to be in 3 to 5 years because there's just way too many variables. But right now, in the immediate term, we are experiencing more reasonable relative to budget than we had in the past. That's all I have for the town administrator report.
The mini splits came up.
Oh, yeah.
Conversation. Can you tell us about?
Yeah, certainly. So this was an appropriation from town meeting, free cash appropriation from town meeting. We went out and got 3 quotes. So we've got 2 headers in here, 1 in Kat's office, and then there's 2 offices back there who each have 1. They, I believe, are done being plumbed, almost done being plumbed. They'll be back tomorrow to kind of clean some stuff up. And our electrician will be here early next week to get everything up and running. So by our 15th, by our meeting on 15th, we'll have climate control up here for
by our next heat wave.
Are they supposed to be quieter than?
They're so much quieter.
That was my.
Yeah, I have.
And they actually work the heat.
They must have gone up there.
Exactly, yep.
They do. And they move the air as well. Like, it's a great.
Oh, they're way more. They're so much cheaper.
And we came in a little bit under budget. So
Nice.
That's a plus.
Question, while they were up there, did they happen to notice what that lump is?
In that,
I believe that's out of their HVAC expertise.
They were probably like, oh, I gotta stay away from that
Yeah.
stuff.
That would be a good idea.
so this is just for this floor.
Yes, it's just second floor. The first floor has these units.
Okay, great.
That's not an anticipated issue. I think the chief is on there for it.
Chief was on here for the 21D anticipated. Yeah, so that's what we want to talk about. Sorry, we talked about that before the meeting started. So the one item that we have not anticipated 48 hours in advance. Let me pull up actual language on this. We have Chief Kersey on board as well, online as well.
Pat, if you could see if anybody needs these air conditioners after you guys switch, maybe there's other buildings that could use some air conditioners.
Yeah, so one of the capital requests is going to be these at Council on Aging, seeing as it's the cooling center. But in the interim, the plan is to take these to Council on Aging
Okay.
for any space that they
Did
needed.
you ever become a cooling center?
Yeah.
At the town hall?
No, Council on Aging, as it's the way it's staffed with services and with the generator.
Oh, right.
So Council on Aging will be open as a cooling center. So that at the beginning of the announcement. Council on Aging will be open as a cooling center tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. 9 to 1 on Friday, 8 to 3 tomorrow, Thursday. Chapter 11, Section 6 of the general bylaws prohibits having more than one unregistered vehicle in a yard on a property. And it's under the purview of the select board to assess fines associated with this. So we've had a report of this. And then Chapter 1, Section 3 of our bylaws says, we can issue citations, specific penalties as described herein, provided under Section 21D of Massachusetts General Law, which is non-criminal disposition. It's a civil fine. It talks about enforcement officers, and then it says, and other such officials as the select board from time to time may designate. So I wanted clarity from the board regard, kind of going forward clarity as to on this specific issue of unregistered vehicles, how the board wanted to approach these. So initially, police department goes and checks and says, are these actually unregistered vehicles? You get a report of this, they run the plates to be able to determine, is this legitimate? That's clear to me. But then who gets to actually issue a fine? Do we want the police to go out with their ticket book, their 21D ticket book, and issue a non-criminal fine? Previously in the town, the building commissioner has issued, the police department has worked with the building commissioner to issue these fines. Seeing as it's not in the zoning bylaws, it's in the general bylaws, that wasn't my immediate reaction as to who should be responsible for this. It is a reasonable person to be responsible for it, and the select board can still designate that person. So I talked with Chief Kersey earlier, who talked with some of his peers. Some communities, it's a grab bag. Some communities have the building commissioner, some have a dedicated zoning enforcement officer. Some have the police department themselves do the investigation and the citation.
I wonder if there is room in the process for something before a citation, such as a warning letter, because the resident may not be aware of this bylaw, and to give the resident an opportunity to do something about it.
In the long past, having been involved in it as a police officer, if the complaint came to us, the chief would have one of the officers on duty go investigate to make sure that the vehicles, and again, you can have as many vehicles as you want unregistered that are inside a building, I believe, but it's outside in the public who doesn't want to have a used car lot in front of their house. It's not zoned for business. In other words, if somebody you're allowed to have one unregistered vehicle. So if somebody has 3 or 4 scattered around the property, then they have to be registered. And in Massachusetts, that means insured. So if they're not, the police would verify it. And then in the past, the select board's admin would send them a letter and tell them they have 30 days to rectify it before we take further action. And that seems to be reasonable to me. So if once the police department verifies that there are indeed in violation of the bylaw, they report it to your office, and then the town sends them a certified letter that said, look, you have 30 days to rectify this. And then we probably should have a policy. And does the bylaw talk about, I think in general, the bylaw talks about fines for violations of any section, doesn't it? Like a daily fine. I think we've been talked about this before.
This bylaw does have a daily fine, yes.
Yeah. So to me, it would seem reasonable that we send them a letter and say, look, get this in compliance, either register the vehicles or get them removed.
Right.
Or jeopardy of being fined. Or, well, right.
$25 per day per vehicle.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think the bylaw is a little strict. But I understand why it's.
Right.
If you have a neighbor that's got 6 junk cars scattered around the property, you won't.
Yeah, I get it.
I think,
So actually it says per instance. So
okay.
$25 per vehicle. A second offense is $50 per vehicle and $100 for the third and subsequent offense. It doesn't define whether offense is daily or. Yeah, that seems.
Chief Kersey, do you want to be heard on this?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm fine with whatever you guys want to sign for the enforcement. It doesn't matter to me. Your idea sounds pretty good, Mike, and then just decide who enforces it after that. When I did the calling around, I know I know Jason said he thought it was a little harsh, but I guess some of the other towns are bigger fines for the first instance and they go on from there. It's pretty much, it's kind of maintaining just, we have a lot of historic roads. We have nice historic character to our town. I think it's just to prevent, just like we have our stone wall bylaw from having a used car. It's almost like having used cars everywhere over someone's yard. It's just to keep the town looking presentable. So.
In some communities that actually have a split tax rate and they make significant income off of commercial businesses, sometimes people try to run it out of their residential area to prevent tax. But I don't think that's the spirit of this.
No.
We don't have an issue.
But I think it is one, Mike, to keep residential area residential. So, if you're buying a home in a certain area and it has a certain historical look and you're in a historical area, you don't want used cars everywhere, unregistered, people working on them. That should be at a garage or something in a commercial area.
Well, tractors are easy.
You can't register those.
Easy.
So.
This is a farming, right to farm community.
My driveway's full of my kids' cars, so.
So of the two enforcement options, which is most likely to get results without having to go to further litigation? Does the police deliver a ticket or having zoning enforcement officer write a letter?
So our concern with having police involved was the possibility for then kind of accidental warrantless search. So having police conduct a civil matter and then
It turns into a criminal matter.
yeah, and then we have fruit of poison tree stuff because they didn't have a warrant to be there. And I think it gets a little, it unnecessarily complicates the matter when this is construed as a civil infraction. So, yeah, my recommendation would be to have, so the bylaw was not clear in how we got from having unregistered cars in a yard to not having registered cars in a yard. So before I went and instructed people on how to do this, I wanted the board, and be too heavy-handed or not heavy-handed enough, I wanted the board's policy perspective on this. So I think sending a letter is a great idea. Give people.
There's something that we enforce often.
Yeah.
Does this get enforced often?
Used to be.
Since we've had our current building commissioner, it has not, and not anything to do with the current building commissioner. It's just the last time the police have been involved with something like this, it was the previous building commissioner. So last 2 years, we haven't had one complaint.
We had a discussion about FedEx trucks on Blackstone.
That's a different matter because they weren't unregistered. They were just commercial operation in a commercial or business residentially zoned area.
All I'm thinking is like, if we do pass that noise bylaw, like maybe that's the moment where we should have a discussion about hiring a zoning enforcement officer.
Can I suggest that we table this discussion further? Well, for now, if it's been verified there's a violation, can we ask you to please send a warning letter?
For sure.
And then let's put it on for our goal setting discussion.
Because if we're going to keep going this route where we take on these civil infractions and we've talked about fees and fines extensively.
Well, I think in this case, it isn't that we're going to take it on. The thing is, it's on the books.
Well,
we have to deal with it.
Right.
We have to have a policy exactly how we proceed with this, which is what I think the town administrator is asking. And I think there's I don't know about the wisdom of having a zoning enforcement officer do something that's not within zoning bylaws. I mean, we do have a parking, who's the parking clerk?
Town clerk.
Yeah, so I think if we have the parking clerk that issues parking fines, maybe they would also issue talk about it.
Yeah, so in Attleboro, I was the parking enforcement officer, and then I delegated that to somebody else, right? but I had a ticket book and it was very uncomfortable for me as the budget director and like my shirt and tie to go out to the parking lot and write a ticket to somebody and put it in their windscreen, right? So like, yeah, it doesn't neatly fall within the zoning enforcement officer, but I think it less neatly falls in almost any other administrative staff that we have.
Right. All I'm saying is if there's someone else who already issues fines of this type, it might make sense to just have them also do this one.
So as the parking clerk, the town clerk administers the process of parking tickets,
Yeah.
but I'll have to check, but I do not believe the town clerk is issuing parking tickets. I think the PD does that.
So the issue is just like it would be a parking ticket. You know, I mean, in the same way, if it's this violation, it might make sense to have them use the same mechanism to issue those.
And like the chief said, in plenty of neighboring communities, PD does do this.
Yeah.
It's not unreasonable for PD to do it. I think there are a few wrong answers there. I just want to make sure we're doing it in the way the board wants to do it.
I don't see us doing a lot of it either anymore. I think this was Mike back from 30 years ago, 40 years ago to keep, you know, I remember when I first started here, there'd be cars on cement blocks in someone's front yard. There'd be 5 of them. So I think it was to prevent yards from looking like junkyards, you know, and they shouldn't be junkyards. It should be a junkyard that you send the cars to, bring it down to Coparts if it's sitting on cement blocks.
Yeah, I'd like to just, keep the
And all
things out of people's yards.
And all I'm thinking is if you already have a parking ticket, you know, a mechanism to issue those fines, maybe it would be easy to just expand it to those occasions when there is a violation of this type that's on that same ticket and it's just a different box you check.
Yeah, and I don't think this will be like a progressive thing for us. It's not like we're going to take it on as a duty and go around looking in everybody's yards, and I'll make sure like the officers know that. This is just responding to complaints from residents because we don't have the bandwidth to start going to everybody's house and trying to look at them through the front. And I don't think you would want us doing that anyways. And I wouldn't want to be doing that.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
100%. All right.
All right, excellent. So no necessarily vote again. One of those things where I don't need to vote from the select board. I just need your general
So
consensus.
it'd be an issue to once the violation's verified, send them a letter giving them the 30 days, and then why don't you work on expanding the current parking ticket program to also encompass that as well? Is that fair? Does that make sense to everybody?
Sense to me.
Okay.
Future agenda items. So we have the status of the paddock property. Do you have any comment on that or?
No, we've got some affordable housing considerations, town meetings funded. So that's a land use thing. We'll as part of the general town land inventory thing we've been talking about for a little bit, which I've worked a little bit more with Dylan on in the last town planner Dylan in the last couple of weeks. That'll be wrapped into that. So I don't have anything specific, and I probably won't for the next couple of meetings. But it's on our slow burn radar.
Okay. Financial policies that we've been discussing.
I was working on them today, so my goal is to be able to have them on the 15th. That's the goal. I go out on leave the following week, so you don't have to vote on them, but you got to be able to chew on them all.
And then the third one is the Cook Cemetery. And we talked, I actually had someone who was requested to be on the committee and actually solicited some donations, was asking about when we were going to have the meeting. So if we can have that scheduled, say between now and the first week in September, that would be great to have a meeting, at least to get all the involved parties together and discuss it. Got it. Okay. And now, item 15, we're going to go into executive session for reason 2, which is to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiating with non-union personnel, police and fire chief. So at this point, I'm going to move to enter into executive session to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel including the police chief, fire chief, town planner, treasurer, collector, conservation agent, assistant town administrator, building commissioner, and highway grounds and facilities superintendent. The board will not reconvene in open session solely for the purpose of adjourning and will instead adjourn from executive session. We need a roll call vote. Morale, aye.
Janelle, aye.
Unanimous. So at this point, we're in adjournment. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a great night.